He walked into the jungle alone and came back with 6 men on his back. October 11, 1967, Cambodia-Vietnam border. The jungle didn't make noise the way cities did. It breathed. Slowly. Patiently. The kind of quiet that crept into your bones and sat heavy on your chest like a warning. To most Americans, the war was already a nightmare. To Sergeant Raymond Colburn, it was personal. Ray wasn't a large man, barely 5'9" with shoulders, shaped by the weight of men he'd already carried out of hell. He had the kind of face that had seen too much for 27 years, most of it in shadows, operations that never made the news. On that morning, Ray sat on the edge of a sandbag bunker at Forward Operating Base Sparrow, staring toward the jungle wall. 10 miles south, a 6-man recon team from MACV-SOG, America's most secretive special ops unit, had gone dark. No radio clicks, no flares, no smoke. Disappeared. They called it routine in the report. Ray knew better. He had trained those 6 men, knew every quirk, every habit. The team leader, Captain Ben Hadley, had once pulled Ray from under a collapsed hooch during a mortar strike in Da Nang. They were more than soldiers. They were brothers. When command labeled it compromised and moved on to the next operation, Ray stood in the talk and said just 6 words. "Then I'll go get them myself." The room fell silent. "Denied," the colonel said flatly. "Too risky. We can't lose another man." Ray didn't respond. He just nodded, walked out, and began packing his gear. Because when men you love are dying alone in the jungle, permission doesn't matter. Part 2, through Hell's Green Gate. Ray stepped into the jungle at 1400 hours with nothing but a Car-15 rifle, a rucksack of supplies, and a heart full of fury. He didn't wait for backup. There wouldn't be any. The last known coordinates of Hadley's team lay somewhere near Hill 943, an overgrown ridge tangled in vines and booby traps. The border with Cambodia was a breath away, and so were the NVA patrols. Each footstep was a gamble. The jungle swallowed sound. His boots sank into mud laced with rotting foliage and death. There were no trails, no footprints, just the faint residue of movement, snapped twigs, disturbed moss, a blood-darkened leaf here and there. Ray followed them like a ghost chaser, driven more by instinct than signs. He moved slowly, crouching low, counting breaths between each step. He scanned tree lines, listened for birds. When they stopped singing, it meant men were nearby. By nightfall, the sky turned black and wet. Rain dripped from the canopy like clockwork. Ray found shelter under a collapsed tree and waited. He didn't sleep. He just listened. Sometime after midnight, a sound broke the pattern. A cough. Dry, raspy, human. He slid through the darkness like a shadow, rifle raised. There, against the base of a tree, lay Private Ken Rowley, barely conscious, feverish, bleeding from the thigh. Ray covered his mouth gently. "Rowley," he whispered. "It's Colburn." "I've got you." Rowley's eyes flickered open, confused, then filled with tears. "They got Hadley. Ambushed. Booby trap. How many of you left?" Ray asked. 4, maybe 5, scattered. Took cover near the ravine. Northwest." Ray didn't wait. He cleaned the wound with iodine and wrapped Rowley's leg. Then, using a poncho and rope, he built a makeshift drag sled and began pulling the kid through the jungle. 1 man found, 5 more to go. He didn't think about food. Didn't think about how the NVA might be closing in. Didn't even care that command would court-martial him if he returned alive. All he thought was, they're still out there. "I'm not leaving without them." Part 3, the last voices in the trees. By dawn, Ray's arms burned like fire. He had dragged Rowley nearly 2 kilometers, resting only when his legs buckled beneath him. The jungle seemed angrier now, dense, swollen with mist, each leaf a blade and every vine a snare. But Ray didn't slow. He listened. Somewhere ahead, a branch cracked. Then another. Not birds, not monkeys. He lowered Rowley carefully and raised his rifle, stepping forward until he saw movement, just a shadow between 2 trees. Ray whispered the old SOG challenge call. "Razor 1? Silence. Then a faint reply. "Razor 2? Bleeding bad." It was Corporal Diaz. His uniform was torn. One arm twisted in an unnatural angle, face pale from blood loss. He was half carrying another man, Sergeant Blake. unconscious and burned down one side. Ray rushed forward and helped them down. "How far?" he asked. Diaz winced. "3 of us left. Scattered after the claymore went off. Hadley, he said it when he knew they'd found us. Gave us a chance to run." Ray nodded. That sounded like Hadley. He treated Blake's burns with what little ointment he had left. Diaz's shoulder was likely dislocated, but he couldn't fix it here. Too risky, too loud. He handed Diaz a morphine stick and told him to bite down. By noon, they moved again. Now, with 3 wounded, Rowley on the sled, Diaz limping, Blake barely breathing. Ray was herding ghosts. And he still hadn't found Hadley. The ravine came into view, a jagged tear in the earth lined with roots and rocks. Below it, an old animal trail curved westward, probably toward Cambodian territory. Ray froze when he saw the mark. A torn jungle boot wedged under a root, stained with blood. And next to it, scrawled into the mud with a broken finger, CPTH. He followed it. 2 hours deeper into the ravine, he found him. Captain Ben Hadley lay propped against a tree, both legs torn by shrapnel. His rifle across his lap, 3 empty mags at his feet. His eyes opened slowly when Ray knelt. "Took you long enough," Hadley rasped, cracking a smile. Ray laughed, but it broke into a sob. "You stubborn bastard." Hadley looked past him. "How many made it?" "5, including you," Ray said. "Then what are you waiting for?" Hadley whispered. "Get us the hell out of here." Part 4, the fire in the sky. They couldn't walk. Not really. Hadley's legs were useless. Blake had slipped into a near coma. Rowley drifted in and out, mumbling about home. That left Ray, Diaz, and sheer willpower. Ray fashioned another drag stretcher using ponchos and bamboo. He strapped Hadley onto it, tied Blake to Diaz's side with cloth torn from his own shirt, and slung Rowley over his back like a child. Then he began the climb, up the ravine, 1 foot at a time, through mud that swallowed his boots and roots that clawed his skin. Every 100 meters he stopped to check pulses. They were still alive, barely. By the second night, the rain returned. Lightning flashed overhead, giving him glimpses of NVA patrols moving through the trees. He buried the group under thick brush and sat in the rain with his rifle, finger frozen to the trigger. At dawn, he finally reached high ground, an old LZ the team had reconned a week earlier. It was overgrown now, but it had a clear view of the sky. He dropped to his knees and pulled the radio from his rucksack. The batteries were half dead. Water had soaked the casing. The antenna was bent. He flicked the switch. Nothing. He smacked the side, adjusted the frequency, tried again. Static. Then, "Tiger Den, this is Wildman 3. Repeat, Wildman 3, I have package. Request immediate extraction. Multiple wounded. Coordinates to follow." Silence. Then, "Wildman 3, this is Tiger Den. Say again your traffic." "Authentication Bravo Kilo?" Ray's voice cracked. "Bravo Kilo. This is Sergeant Raymond Colburn. I have 6 survivors, including Captain Hadley. We need birds. We need them now." The reply was instant. "Copy that, Wildman. Extraction inbound ETA 10 minutes. Smoke out if you can." Ray lit a flare with trembling fingers and watched it hiss purple into the sky. 9 minutes later, the jungle trembled. 2 Hueys roared into view, blades slicing through mist and memories. The downwash threw up leaves and ghosts as the birds hovered low. Doors flew open. Gunners scanned tree lines. Medics jumped out. Ray didn't speak. He just started lifting the wounded one by one into the bird. Diaz wept as the corpsman strapped him in. Rowley smiled through cracked lips. Hadley gripped Ray's hand and nodded. Then Ray climbed in last, boots soaked, body broken, uniform torn and blood-soaked. The Huey rose and the jungle finally let go. Below them, smoke still curled from the ravine like the war's last breath. But above, for a moment, there was only sky. Part 5, the quiet return. They landed at a field hospital in Pleiku just before sunset. Doctors rushed to the choppers, shouting orders, lifting stretchers. Ray stumbled out last, his arms trembling, boots barely touching the ground. One medic tried to pull him toward triage, but he waved them off. "Take them first," he rasped, motioning to Hadley, Rowley, Diaz, Blake. He sat down against the Huey's skid and let the noise fade. The war still roared in his bones, but for a moment, there was quiet. Later that night, a colonel from base command approached him with a clipboard. "You disobeyed direct orders, Sergeant." Ray didn't answer. "You went into restricted territory, acted without authorization, endangered assets." Still silence. Then the colonel looked up, softened slightly, and brought back 6 men who would have died alone. He tore the top sheet from the clipboard and crumpled it. "You were never there," the colonel said quietly. "Understood?" Ray looked up, face hollow. "Understood." They gave him no medal, no press, no record. The official report listed the team as recovered during routine patrol. Ray was transferred to another base 2 weeks later. He didn't complain. He never talked about what happened in those 3 days in the jungle. Not once. Not even to Hadley. Years later, after the war ended, Diaz wrote him a letter. "You didn't just save us, Ray. You brought back parts of ourselves we thought we'd lost forever. You carried more than bodies out of that jungle. You carried hope." Ray never replied, but he kept the letter in a box with a torn jungle boot, a bent radio antenna, and a faded photo of 6 men smiling in a hospital bed. He lived the rest of his life in a small town in Oregon, worked in construction, taught his son to fish, never mentioned the war, not once. Until the day he died, most of the world never knew his name. But 6 men did, and to them, Sergeant Raymond Colburn would always be the man who walked into hell alone and brought them all home. Subscribe for more Wings of Valor.